What do you feel when you see a woman who has chosen to live alone? Admiration or discomfort? There's a reason why society still feels so uncomfortable with women who don't need a man by their side to feel complete. And that reason has nothing to do with loneliness. What I'm about to reveal will deconstruct everything you believe about emotional dependency, relationships, and what it truly means to be a whole woman in a world that still prefers women to be halves. When Carl Jung, one of history's greatest psychoanalysts, developed the concept of individuation, he was talking about the process of becoming who you truly are, of integrating all parts of yourself, including those that society tries to silence. And there's a class of women today who perfectly embody this process. Those who have chosen to live without a partner, not for lack of options, but because of an abundance of self-knowledge. No, they're not bitter. They're not traumatized. They're not waiting for Prince Charming. They've simply discovered something few have the courage to admit, that true fulfillment begins when you stop expecting someone else to fill your voids. If you've ever wondered why some women seem so comfortable in their own solitude, while many people still panic at the idea of being alone, keep watching. Because what I'm going to share in the next few minutes might completely change your perspective on what it means to be alone and what it means to be complete. Jung spoke about the shadow, that part of ourselves we repress, deny, and hide not only from others, but from ourselves. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The woman who lives alone by choice represents the collective shadow of a society that still fears female autonomy. Think about it. What happens when a woman doesn't need to be saved? When she doesn't seek approval? When she doesn't expect someone to complete her? She challenges the logic of control. She dismantles the myth of emotional dependency. And that's threatening to a world built on predetermined roles. Because while many people are still looking to fill their voids with relationships, these women have turned their gaze inward. And in the vast territory of their own unconscious, they've faced ghosts they've avoided for years. Childhood wounds, unspoken abandonments, attachments disguised as love. Their decision to be alone didn't come from an open wound, but from a scar that finally healed. They didn't stop believing in love. They simply stopped accepting what others called love when it only made them feel smaller. You're too picky. Nobody's perfect. You'll end up alone. Phrases that many independent women hear constantly. But what do these criticisms really reveal? They reveal the profound discomfort that a self-sufficient woman causes in a society still trapped in fairy tales. Because when a woman chooses to be alone, she isn't getting lost. She's finding herself. And that kind of self-discovery doesn't come with applause, likes, or company. It comes with silence, strength, and a kind of freedom most people still don't understand. Jung said that where convention rules, there is little room for authenticity. And this woman doesn't live by convention. She lives by essence. The discomfort she causes isn't in what she says, it's in what she represents. Living proof that it's possible to be happy without depending on anyone. And that tears masks off. Men who feed on female insecurity feel threatened. Women still trapped in the need for approval feel judged. But she isn't here to confront anyone. She's simply being. And the authenticity of someone who has freed herself is, by itself, a brutal mirror to those still living in chains. This journey is not for the weak. It's a grueling process of stripping off masks, facing the ghosts of emotional dependency, and rebuilding yourself piece by piece. Jung said that the tree that grows to heaven must have roots that reach down to hell. And that's exactly what she lived through. She descended into the hell of her own story, faced ancestral fears, inherited pain, traumas that weren't just hers, but those of all the women who came before her. She broke cycles, said no to relationships that repeated the same toxic script, learned that it wasn't her job to heal anyone, save anyone, or accept crumbs out of fear of being alone. And when she stopped accepting less, the world tried to convince her she was wrong, but she stood her ground, first with uncertainty, then with awareness, and finally with invulnerability. Because someone who has lived in their own abyss no longer fears absence. She learns to nourish herself with silence, to warm herself with her own presence. There is a fundamental difference between being alone and being lonely. Between isolating and preserving oneself, this woman isn't hiding. She's protected. She isn't closed to love. She's open to a love that doesn't diminish her, that doesn't consume her, that doesn't manipulate her. The love she seeks is the kind that liberates, that adds, that supports without suffocating. And until that love arrives, she chooses to continue growing on her own. Not out of pride, but out of integrity. The problem is that in a world that still idolizes couples, even unhappy ones, many don't understand that sometimes it's better to be alone than invisible in a relationship. Jung taught that those who look outward dream, but those who look inward awaken. And it was precisely that inner journey that she took. She no longer defines herself through the eyes of others. She sees herself through her own eyes. And that changes everything. Desire becomes discernment. Lack becomes choice. Waiting becomes a path. And what once hurt now teaches. We are witnessing a new archetype of woman. A woman who has walked through the emotional desert and chosen to return in peace. Not because she conquered all her fears, but because she learned to live with them without being defeated. Jung would say she found wholeness not by eliminating opposites, but by integrating them. This woman doesn't reject love. She has simply learned not to submit to unbalanced relationships where one must dim so the other can shine. Deep down, the world fears women like her. Women who don't need, women who don't bow, women who refuse to be molded because they challenge invisible structures, question old patterns, and break silent emotional contracts that once dictated a woman's place. She doesn't walk ahead of anyone, but she doesn't follow either. She carves her own path, unique, inviolable. And along that journey, she lights little fires for others who are waking up too. When a woman chooses to walk alone, the world rushes to convince her she's making a mistake. But deep down, she feels something aligning within her. It's not pride or rebellion. It's a rare kind of wisdom that can only be born in silence. The same wisdom Jung called individuation, the process of becoming fully who you are without masks, without compromise. And when true love finally arrives, it won't be salvation, it will be celebration. It won't come to fill her, it will come to overflow. Because she already knows the most profound truth of all. It's not about finding someone. It's about never losing yourself again. And that changes everything. If something inside you was touched by this message, maybe it's because deep down, you recognize this truth too. Share this video with someone who needs to remember their own strength. Like, comment, and subscribe to be part of this journey. Not out of impulse, but out of choice. Because when something touches the soul, the least we can do is let it keep resonating.